Greetings, brethren. Hausburger Donkey here, and a bit of a delay with the Hills tutorial because, well, I've had a lot of other stuff to do. So, yeah, and I really wanted to get all the forest bases and other pieces that I had on the same level, so that I could do everything, you know, in one haul and not do the hills and then do other terrain pieces extra. So as you can see, we're already a bit further ahead now. I didn't show this process, but there's really not much to it. On these ones I just added some extra rocks. I wanted to add some on the hills, but it kind of just ended up being only those two. And on this curved one we have a few, but I don't know, I didn't like how it looked when, you know, there were big rocks on top, and I was worried that it would probably be awkward for regiment bases and stuff like that, so I decided against that. So, but if you want more rocks on your hills, I would advise, you know, gluing them on the sort of rim around the top, because that way you can still have regiment bases on top, and it doesn't, you know, or if you only play skirmish games, you can just scatter them wherever you want to. That's fine as well. But in this case, I went with very few rocks, and then I just covered the whole thing afterwards in PVA glue. I use Ponal, which is what we get in Germany. Any PVA glue will do. I'm sure Elmer's glue will do probably as well. And then I just covered it with sand. And the sand I use for this particular job when it comes to terrain is, whoop, can you see that? Chinchilla sand. I don't know if that comes across, but it's chinchilla sand. It's from the pet store. And the reason I use this is because it's not quite as fine as bird sand. As you can see, there's a lot more individual grains, and I don't know if there's some. I have the feeling that there's not just sand in that stuff, so not just quartz sand, but there's also like cork or stuff like that in there. So it kind of soaks liquid up a little bit better than bird sand would. So that makes it really great for that, you know, gluing it onto things and then sealing them, which is what the next step was. So as I said, first step, cover it with Elmer's glue or PVA glue or anything like that. Then dump a whole bunch of sand on top. Let it dry for a few seconds, then pull it out, you know, tap off all the excess, and then you'll see any spots where you missed any, you know, like here. But, you know, it's not really that bad. If there's big patches missing, you can fix that a little bit. But if it's just like this, it really won't show up later. And then you have to let that sit and dry for, I would say, give it 24 hours, just to make sure that everything is really nice and, you know, thoroughly dried and crusted. And then what you do is you take some PVA glue and you thin it down really well. So we're looking about the consistency of milk, right? It's very, very thin, and I really hope that this is enough, because I only have this last piece to go. And then what you do is you carefully get some in the brush, and you carefully just soak the whole surface in this about milk consistency PVA glue. Just be careful that you don't, you know, use too much force, because that'll brush off some of the sand. Especially once you already have the stuff on, you kind of don't want to go over the same place twice. So just be careful and really nicely soak the whole thing. And then once the whole thing is soaked, you let it dry again for, I don't know, the second. This won't actually take that long. I would say, I don't know. If you do it in the morning, it should be dry by the evening. But, you know, you can give it another day if you want. And then it's ready for painting. And in this case, I'm so happy that was about enough. In this case, what I will do with these, I'll set this one aside so it can dry. Which one was the first I did? I think it was this one. So this one I did earlier, maybe like half an hour ago. As you can see, it's still sort of tacky, but in some places it's already starting to dry out. And again, I would say a couple of hours and it'll already start, you know, getting drier, but give it enough time so that it is properly dry and has no dark spots or anything left. And then you can either paint it with just house paint, like, oh, can I pull that out without everything toppling? Yes. Like this, just house paint. For my purposes, I'm going to prime this black. And I'm just going to use just a regular rattle can. And I'm not going to show you the actual process of priming these black, because I would have to take the camera outside and set it up, and that it just seems unnecessary. You know, there's really nothing to it. Just the same way you would prime miniatures is how you can prime this stuff. And because we did all these extra steps of hardening the styrofoam and adding so many layers on top, it will be completely safe to use rattle can primers on this now. Because usually when you use rattle can primers on styrofoam, it melts because of the solvents. But once you cover it with enough stuff, you can just go wild and use your rattle cans. If you have a black and a brown rattle can, you can also just give it a nice thorough black priming and then sort of spray sort of zenithal on it with brown. That will already give it some really nice character, and then you can just dry brush it afterwards. But yeah, I'm gonna prime it brown, and then next time we'll be painting all of them with this brown right here. It's sort of a red brown. What is it called? Does it have a name? This brown? Chocolate brown. Okay, but it's slightly more red than I would expect from a chocolate brown. And I find this is pretty much perfect for the sort of effect that I'm going for, because as you know, my terrain is mostly used for fantasy, although you can obviously also use this stuff for historical. But because it's used for fantasy, I like the colors to be a bit more saturated and rich, and so this sort of red-brown gives a really nice base coat for the earth color. All right. Really simple steps so far with this sand stuff, and I'll see you next time, and then we'll start finally doing some painting on these and get them to look really cool. All right? All right. Take care, guys. See you in the next video.